Hi everyone and welcome to another Premier Pundits podcast. This fan team special edition, and here as always I'm joined by my esteemed co-host and my on-screen husband, Mr. McKenna. How you doing, my friend?
I'm not doing bad at all, Ben. Always happy to see my husband. Great to see you. And, we're at a distance at the moment, but one day it will be like the Titanic. We'll be holding each other over the edge of, I don't know, maybe the pier or something near Newcastle. But no, I'm doing all right. And I'm really excited with how my fan team's been going. It's been good fun. I did all right last week. I wasn't in the money, but I think I'm getting used to the kind of setup there. And also, let's be honest, this season has been so crazy. Robertson, I would have probably bet my house on at least getting a clean sheet against Brighton. And my goodness me, embarrassment for Liverpool. It just amounted to a lot of problems that I had last game week. But onwards and upwards, and this is the wonderful thing about Fan Team actually that I found is I was looking there, I was like, oh god, this is a terrible game week. Oh, I've not done well, and but you know it wasn't too bad. But then I thought, well, actually, I've got a new lease of life this game week. Team starts back at zero. Basically, I can put anybody who I want in. So positive feelings. I'm really excited to jump into this game week. And I think the good thing about this is there's a lot of good choices on the plate. And it means that you can make some maverick moves, some that you might not do in FPL, but on here you definitely can. And what I'd say as well is the wonderful thing about this interface with Fan Team is I've got a few hunches that we'll go through. I've got a few teams that I'm kind of on the line about. And it does mean that, I could possibly make 2 or 3 teams so that I've got all bases covered, so that I don't go and kick myself in the leg and maybe give myself some sort of leg fracture that then a wonderful fantasy doctor could describe, Dr. Raj. But yeah, I don't kick myself and regret my decisions. But yeah, just a reminder there quickly, do stay subscribed to us. We're obviously talking about Fan Team today. Up later this week, of course, we've got the great discussions about defensive and forward assets, and also stay subscribed to our premium content with Dr. Raj. It's all free, it's all here on the Premier Injuries channel, and we're expanding as well. Keep an eye out because I think you'll like something soon as well. Tactic Thursdays. That's a teaser. Anyway, Ben, let's get into the fan team discussions. But yeah, this is what you like about it as well. It's amazing that even down in the person in 1,300 place still gets a small prize, and you're in for a prize actually this week at the moment.
I am. I mean, Fan Team's great for me. You know, as I'm anti-template, I'm the maverick. I like to go for those, off the wall, beats. Pick up the players that you wouldn't necessarily look at. Those players that tend to you maybe overlook on other platforms, low ownership. That's what I really like about that. And this week, yeah, I'm doing quite well. We're actually recording for the second time. I'm hastened to add. Gremlins in the system meant that we've lost our first recording. So this is the second time we're doing the same pod. The first recording, I was in 190th place. But now we're around 60 minutes into the Chelsea and Tottenham game, and I'm down to 210. 210th place doesn't sound great, but I'm still in the money, and I'm still set for a nice little return, more than doubles me NB fee alone. So, that gives you some kind of indication that you don't have to be great. You don't have to be, pushing for those top spots to still earn a solid, decent second income. But enough of me. And, if I do digress during the course of this podcast, you know why? Because I will be following those scores closely. I'm all out, so I can't effectively go anywhere else other than down. So it's only those players below me that can do the damage. But yeah, if you missed last week's podcast, Jason actually popped his cherry for the first time in Fan Team. And since you're a convert, you're hooked. You've now had 2 game weeks, and how have you found it, Jason?
Yeah, it's been good fun. Like I said, what I love is that I might not have had the best time in the last couple of game weeks as I've kind of got to grips with it and with those freaky kind of game weeks that we've had. But I'm really positive, like each game week is fresh and new, whereas with FPL I'd kind of think, oh God, I've transferred this player in and now I'm stuck with them. So yeah, I think, let's move on to the team. I'm going to show up on screen now so that people can kind of follow along as well, so that they can, either cheer and go, that's a great idea, Jason, or just laugh at me behind their computer screens and think that I'm an absolute plonker. But I don't think I'm a plonker, because between the sticks, I've got Nick Pope. Now, the discussions here, well, let's be honest, I got 3 from Burnley in defence. I've got Pope, I've got Tarkowski, and I've got Loughton. And the reason for the treble up is obviously the game against Brighton. And looking at the kind of data for the season, kind of explaining my reasons for it, I look at Burnley, and there's such a good side at exceeding expected numbers. So looking at Pope, he's had about 6 more goals saved than he should have this season. He's done phenomenally well. Now, the underlying data of Burnley is not great, but we know that it doesn't really matter to them. They can kind of break that. But the flip side is, and this is where, the beauty of Fan Team is, that you can enter 2, 3, 4 or more teams, as many as you like really, is there are some great stats for the Seagulls as well. But I look at, and maybe this is a bit more of historical data. Also, I have a soft spot for Burnley, but I just think a little bit gut feeling as well, which is really unlike me, that I'm sticking with Burnley over the Seagulls. But this could be a really nice 0-0 draw between either side, because they're not really high-scoring teams, either of them. And I say that you have to look at the Seagulls because they're playing the second worst attack over the last 6, and the Clarets generally are the second worst attack in terms of data for the whole season. Premier League low of 13 goals scored in total. They're missing some of their strike force, which you'll kind of go through, Ben, and maybe what to expect there. But Brighton are also looking good. And the thing is, the positivity around the club does have to come a little bit from the fact of the good performances of their keeper, Sanchez. He seems to have turned things a little bit around. So looking at the first 13 games of the season, Brighton severely underperformed their XG conceded. And then looking at the kind of 13 up until now, so game week 13 till 12, since Sanchez has kind of been stuck in the side, all of a sudden Brighton are kind of matching XG conceded or actually bettering it a little bit. But what I would say as well for me is the worry is, yes, they've done well, and since game week 13 to here now, they've had 5 clean sheets, but 4 of them have come in the last 6. So I don't know if they're that much improved. I don't know if it's a good run of fixtures. So that's why I'm kind of almost regressing back to what I know, which is Burnley. So I don't know what your thoughts and feelings are there, Ben. Is it a bit hypocritical of me to be going against the data, or is it good to kind of believe in Dyche because we know how good he is at managing out 0-0s, draws and clean sheets, especially in hard situations?
What I would like to say first and foremost of all, we don't discuss our fan team picks and selections before we come on the podcast. Jason sends those across and we have a look for the first time. Of course, we converse and have ideas throughout the course of the week. But I've just done the official fan team podcast as well prior to this, and I picked my starting 11. And I'll take upon words that you mentioned. If people think you're a plonker for going triple Burnley defence, well, hands up, because I'm also a plonker. I've also opted for triple. I didn't go for Nick Pope. I went Ramsdale in goal, but I've stuck with Tarkowski, me, and Loughton. three solid defenders, all at around that 6.6, 6.5 million price point. You know exactly how Sean Dyche is going to set up his team in a solid 4-4-2. The only slight rotation risk in there is going to be at left back, where we see Eric Peters flip-flopping with Charlie Taylor, who's carrying a hamstring issue. Those other three players certainly look locked in. And for me, you're right, on paper, Brighton look the banker, but they're coming off two great results. Winning at Anfield, beating Tottenham. I think if you were to turn around and speak to Graham Potter, he would snap your hands off for a point at Turf Moor. Nils each. Burnley, Ashley Barnes is rated as a doubt, may not be involved. We also have concerns over Chris Wood as well. So that's probably going to mean that Jay Rodriguez and maybe Matai Vidra start up front. For Burnley, they're all right. Are they going to get you bagfuls of goal? Probably not. And in the Brighton camp, they're also carrying a few problems. The big one for me is the loss of Solly Marsh. Now, we don't know the extent of that knee problem, but he's going to be a big miss for the Seagulls. So for me, this has got a draw written all over it. And I think nils each would be great for both of our teams.
The thing is as well, talking about the fan team set up, and obviously week to week the team money changes, the prices of the players and everything. So you have the set budget, but the actual price of the players differs. And the Brighton players, I would say, are maybe inflated in price at the moment because, fair enough, they've had a really good result against Liverpool. They're coming into this game on the back of 4 clean sheets, so no wonder they cost a little bit more than Burnley. But I'm thinking as well, it makes my money go a little bit further to invest elsewhere in the team, in some more maverick, crazy picks. And I think people will like also looking at my team, a very interesting formation of 5-2-3, not one that you often see in FPL, but continuing these discussions here and looking at the next player in my back line, I'm going to go with actually looking at James Justin first before we get on to the Hammers and their double up there. But yes, Leicester, top 4 defence, top 5 defence, depending on what kind of metrics you look at in terms of XG conceded or other kinds of bits of data. The team looked good over the last 6. They looked really good recently. And one of the things that you and I had concerns over, Ben, was obviously James Justin starting. That was the big, and I think totally legitimate, totally fair kind of appraisal that we were giving to the community, because Pereira was on the horizon, Castagne, or all these players there that littered with talent, Leicester are, but they got to shove them back into that back line somehow. Not all of them are going to be accepting that they're on the bench. But James Justin has kind of kept his place. He's looking good. And as I said there, the Foxes look good at the back. So they're 4th best for XG conceded over the last 6 game weeks. They've conceded 5, so they're about matching their, XG conceded of 4.97. And goal attempts in the box, they've done really well in kind of limiting teams in terms of quality chances as well. So in terms of a defensive unit, they're good. But then I also look at the team that they're playing, Wolves. Really poor attack recently. They've done well against Arsenal in terms of getting that result. But obviously it was helped by a penalty, red cards to Arsenal's defensive line. So, I think this is a really good one where the team can at least see out, and James Justin might, chip in with some sort of attacking help, maybe in an assist. But the thing is, with James Justin, his kind of underlying data isn't great for the attacking stuff. But what I like with any kind of defensive asset is the bread and butter, that they're going to get involved with a clean sheet, see that out. There is the limited possibility of an attacking bit of data, but realistically, that's not going to happen too much with James Justin, but much more likely than the Burnley assets. Let's be honest about that. But yeah, I really like James Justin. I really kind of enjoyed seeing him break into that first team as well. Really good season. And against Wolves, I think Leicester have to be favourites. to keep a clean sheet as well. Do you have any kind of worries though? Because obviously Vardy is out of the team at the moment. Is there any other injury concerns that should concern me and people that might be looking into that Leicester backline?
I mean, it depends on how you want to sort of interpret, the injury updates. You couldn't put a positive spin on it. As it happens, Brendan Rodgers is very confident that Jamie Vardy will actually return to the side. That in itself will give Leicester a big boost. There's also very confident that Wilfred Ndidi, will be in and around the squad. Now, whether he's fit enough, to start that game remains to be seen. But him sitting in front of that back line, acting as a shield, is a big plus for the Foxes. On the flip side to that, in recent weeks, Leicester have lost Timothy Castagna, and there's also, we've just found out that Wesley Fofana will be out for at least 4 to 5 weeks. Now, that means we've got Ricardo Pereira coming into the team, and also Soyuncu, who will start alongside Evans. Now, I'm fairly sweet on Soyuncu. I think he offers a lot of threat, in both boxes. Great defender, no nonsense, but, on set pieces, great. And that could benefit the likes of maybe James Maddison. Leicester aren't getting their just rewards maybe from set pieces. And I think with Soyuncu, he does add that little bit of added attacking threat from a defender, in that third from, corners and free kicks. So Soyuncu is definitely a player that's on my radar. And yeah, I agree with you with Wolves. The only, and I'm saying it's a slight concern, I'm always aware of, Wolves do have the quality. It's just maybe they're not being deployed, or they've been a little bit unfortunate. I think I do like Pedro Neto. We all know, Adama Traore is capable, of doing anything to any defender on any day. And I also like the look of William Jose, and he's not far off, I think, from potentially turning Wolves, out of this sort of mid-season lull and putting them back onto the winning trail. So that's the slight concern. We know Leicester can sometimes throw a bad result in there. Look at, for example, take the Leeds, defeated the King Power 3-1 on the back of that, which came as a big surprise to everyone. But, I like Leicester. Brendan Rodgers will really need to make a concerted effort during this, this approaching the business end of the the season, really, if they want to push on, for maybe a Champions League qualification place as it stands at the moment, because, you take Manchester City out of the equation, who are head and shoulders above everybody in terms of their consistency, and everybody else, it's just a bit of a bun fight. So, there's no reason why Leicester can't break into that top four and, secure Champions League football next season.
Yeah, this is the thing that Leicester will be kind of focusing on that. And I think that, again, kind of just embellishes the attractiveness for them. That Wolves front line, I do get that they got the quality, but just looking at last 6 weeks, last 4 weeks of data, they're just not putting good attacking data numbers up. And, the fact that Wilfred Ndidi might be back in the side as well, that's a huge positive bonus for me personally. I love watching him play. He's such a brilliant, world-class defensive midfielder. I think people might be shocked for me to say that, but I think he's incredibly undervalued as an asset in terms of just an out-and-out footballer. I mean, I was talking about this on another podcast, a funny kind of conundrum, what do you do with solving a problem like getting rid of N'Golo Kante? Well, you just buy Wilfred Ndidi. He's that good. So if he is back in the squad, that is an amazing bonus and kind of fills me with huge confidence. I love watching him play. But on the point as well, just a little bit earlier of kind of talking about the mechanics of Fan Team, we, as I said, were discussing previously in previous weeks, if James Justin was dropped, what would happen? Well, the wonderful thing about Fan Team is actually that if he was dropped, the game will kind of substitute somebody in from the Leicester backline who's around that price point. You have to leave probably a little bit of money so that sort of thing kind of gets sorted out. But the other week when Cancelo was dropped, Kyle Walker was put into my team and I got a clean sheet. So I was really happy about that. That really sorted that out for me. Now, the last two of my picks before I get into discussions about maybe other ones that I should be bringing in, but Cresswell and Kufal. I mean, West Ham, attacking-wise, we'll get onto them, but top 4, maybe top 2 in terms of attacking data. But defensively as well, they're matching that. Top 4, top 2 in some of the data. It's ridiculous kind of stuff. What's fascinating to me is they're doing so well. And actually, they could be doing better. In terms of XG conceded, they're second behind Manchester City over the last 6, but they've conceded a bit too many goals at the moment. Now, usually, historically, Fabianski's so good at blocking out these goals, so I think there will be a turnaround. But they're not allowing a lot of goal attempts in the box, not allowing a lot of shot attempts, big chances conceded, all rock bottom, either second or around that. I mean, it's really fanciful stuff there. But what I also love about Cresswell and Kufal is they're potentially assisting one of the best strikers in the league at the moment in Mikel Antonio, but they are top of the creative charts amongst defenders, only behind one other player that we might talk about a little bit later. He's a little bit of a swear word, so I'll prepare Ben just so that he can settle in nicely. Don't want to jar him too early on, but Cresswell and Kufel are top or near the top of these creative charts. Lots of big chances created, total chances created. I mean, this is exciting stuff, high XAs. So they'll be in and around the goals. And obviously with Cresswell, there is that opportunity for set-piece work, which West Ham are actually the second best team in the league for set-piece work. So it fills me with a lot of joy, and maybe it might not be Antonio, it might be Souček getting that big, head of his onto it and putting it into the back of the net. But yes, so I think I've covered my defence nicely there.
I would like to chip. I'm sorry to interject there, but
interject all you like.
I just wanted to throw, because while we're on the topic of West Ham, and one that just popped into mind, it would be a Maverick pick. It would be a brave choice because he's by no means nailed. But we've seen Ryan Fredericks deployed. I was quite surprised. I thought when the initial sort of team news come out, I thought it must have been a 5 at the back in a Masuaku sort of way. I didn't realise that he had dropped Jared Bowen at the time, and he played Ryan Fredericks in the 3 behind Antonio. And I think that's definitely one for people to watch, because obviously you're picking up a defender who's effectively playing as a right winger, or certainly, right side of the attack. So he could be a great pick, but it just comes down to minutes with David Moyes. Like I say, I think Jared Bowen was probably rested, given the heavy fixture period that we've got. But it's nice to know that, Fredericks is on the radar and he's being deployed, in an advanced role against certain opposition. And again, they come away with a great result against Aston Villa.
Yeah, the thing is as well, you can make those gambles with fan teams. So you could go in there, get Fredericks in. I'm not sure his price point. I don't know if he's in the game actually, because that might be so maverick they haven't even covered it. But if he's in the game there, if he doesn't play, Kufal might come in, or Cresswell, or any of their other defensive assets. Even Dawson and Ogbonna are kind of goodish owns, and they'd save you a fair few pennies to put in the rest of your team. So that's not a bad shout at all. I really like it, Ben. I just love anything to do with West Ham at the moment. I think they're doing so well. But let's move it into the midfield, and there's a huge kind of maverick pick there with Hudson-Odoi. Now, I was kind of keeping with bated breath today to see if he's going to start, if he is truly Tuchel's blue-eyed boy, which Dan Dormer kind of explained from the Chelsea London is Blue podcast. He came on and explained that he believed that was kind of almost a big differential pick because of his price in FPL, but also in terms of fan team, I think he can be a good pick because of the nature of who Chelsea are playing next. It's Sheffield United. The worry is that that Sheffield United have almost turned the corner a little bit recently, and this might be why you've got Ramsdale in your team, as you mentioned earlier. The side have inexplicably almost got results at Old Trafford. They turned it around this weekend as well against West Brom. Less inexplicable, might I add there. That one is more kind of, oh, that could happen. But it'd be a nice story if Wilder could turn it around and keep Sheffield United up. But I don't want it to be at the cost of me getting some fan team points. Callum Hudson-Odoi 11.3, I think, is a cheaper way into that Chelsea midfield, but also in terms of XGI before the game that is going on at the moment. I don't have the data to hand of his contributions then, but he had the highest XGI of any Chelsea player since Tuchel has come in, and he seems to be starting week in, week out. But at 11.3, I don't know if this is a punt too far, because there's a fair discussion that I'm sure you're going to bring to me in a moment, Ben, of maybe Salah, maybe Sterling, maybe another one. Son, he's playing West Brom, but why haven't I got him in? And this is the fun nature of fan team. You can't have all of them in. I just feel like it's a big differential, and this is what the game is all about with fan team, to have fun with that. And maybe if I'm not feeling too secure in it, I might not put him in another one of my squads. So the other pick that I can cement and say I'll definitely be having if I do have one or two or more squads is Fernandes. He has to be in there. Man United are on really good scoring form after that 9-0 drubbing of Southampton. And what I would say as well is Everton just don't look good. Pickford's not a great goalkeeper. Defensively, they've done all rightish, but they're still very easy to get one or two goals against. And normally when Man United score, it's Fernandes involved, isn't it? So I'm kind of happy to have Fernandes in there. I think it'll be a hard-fought game because Everton see this as almost another rivalry, as another derby day. But realistically, it should be Man United's win, and it should be a good kind of goal or two at least for Manchester United. And hopefully, because it's at Old Trafford as well, there is that possibility of a cheeky penalty, because they just seem to get them. Let's be honest, Man United do get those penalty shouts a little bit more often than other teams. But what do you think about that midfield there, Ben?
Look, hard to disagree with Bruno. My saviour midweek, my captain, 32 points. People think he's almost in a little bit of a lull, or he's had a dip in form. The problem is with Bruno is he's been too good. The bar that he's set since he arrived at Manchester United has been unbelievable. He's a points magnet. He's been an absolute beast. But he showed midweek against Southampton. Still he wants that desire to win, to keep on pushing to the 90th minute. There was no thought in the mind of easing back, and taking it easy at 6. We want 7, we want 8, we want 9. And I like that. He's a winner. He's a proven winner. So he's a great pick. The Hudson-Odoi is the one that maybe doesn't sit quite well with me. I get what you're saying. Guaranteed minutes. He's playing well. He's a decent price point into that team. I'm just thinking, are we just a little bit ahead of the curve? Because I believe he will come good and I believe he will score points. But I think there's still a little bit of a bedding in period with Tuchel, and maybe there's a little tweaks in the system and personnel to fit in and around Hudson-Odoi, and he will benefit from that, and the team will benefit from that a little bit more down the line. I think at 11 million, it's just a little bit pricey for me. Looking at your team sheet and looking at my selections, one of the things that screamed, and it was fairly obvious to me, and we've never even touched upon it, is it's not so much who you've picked, it's who you haven't picked. And I'm looking at that big game on Sunday, and I in particular avoided those Manchester City players and look to avoid maybe even the Liverpool players. But then, for those regular players of fan team who are used to going straight to those assets, we're talking about players who inherently are in and around that 13 and 14 million pound price point, the real high-end premium buys, you can only afford the ones and the twos of those players. But this week, because it's such a big game, a tight game, you can pick Mo Salah up for 9.9 million. And I mean, regardless of form, regardless of fixture, regardless of how, Liverpool are playing, under 10 million, then for me, given what Salah can bring to your team and he's on the spot kicks, he has to come in for me. It's an absolute no-brainer. And given that, we're always looking for maybe a slight differential, in the grand scheme of how players might be looking at this weekend, I think Mo Salah would be one of those players, that will be overlooked. I mean, I've heard people on other platforms saying they will be benching Mo Salah this weekend, which is, unheard of, in seasons gone past. And secondly, before I pass it over to yourself, I want to throw another one in there. And I'm going to go back to your team, West Ham. And the reason being, we have the Man United connection there again, and that's Jess Lingard, 8.1 million. Ooh. Now, looking at Jess Lingard from the point of view of almost a Ross Barkley arriving at Aston Villa, never had much minutes, had, niggling injury problems, had a lot of critics. He's come to a club where he feels he's got to just prove to himself that he is capable of producing at the highest level. He'll be running on adrenaline, running, on full of excitement. Great to be back out there, even in his own mind. I think, there's a part of him that still believes he could make the Euros. Plays well. If there's a couple of players ahead of him, pick up injuries, then Gareth Southgate could do that. But he's got to go out and prove himself. And while he mightn't be up to 100% in terms of his sharpness and match fitness, like I say, that adrenaline in those first couple of games will get him through. He bagged 2 on his debut. Mikel Antonio was full of praises. He linking up the play. For me, at 8.1 million, I think he's a great buy, and I think he's worth some serious consideration.
I'll start off with your first kind of point about who's missing in terms of the Liverpool City game, because you know what, I do think that the Lingard one's an interesting one, and we will get onto it. But of course, it is the kind of box office game, isn't it? The huge one this weekend. But I always kind of look at those, and in terms of FPL, in terms of kind of those predictions sort of stuff, I always put them down as like a 0-0 or a draw or something, because usually they're kind of billed as Super Sunday and the greatest game on earth since Titan versus whatever. And realistically, it's kind of a bore fest where both teams don't want to lose. They want to put a good front foot forward and kind of, to the fans and to the players as well, keep themselves in the title race, all these kind of stereotypes that are thrown out during these matches. And I think that will be part of the problem with the Liverpool-Manchester City game, is that Liverpool will come into this almost kind of downtrodden. They've had two losses on the bounce, losing at home after not losing for God knows how many hours and days and years that it was. But Anfield was a fortress. Now it's kind of almost lost that ability, and they'll just be wanting to rebuild, regroup, and focus maybe on the old style of regressing back to what they know best, sticking to the basics. That's what I'm trying to say. Manchester City are so good defensively. I don't see Liverpool scoring at the moment. So whilst I wouldn't bench Salah, because I think he can and does turn up against anybody and everybody. We've seen that through history. He's just that damn good. He is a world-class player. But I think the data for City is so damn good that they'll probably win this 1-0, 2-0. And I think if you're having a debate about cheaply priced but one of the big boy assets, I'd say go for Sterling. I think Man City at the moment have been in fine form, and he's the player that's kind of been feeding off that form. And if you look at his individual data, him and Mo Salah are pretty close in terms of, XGI, XG, shots in the box. There's not much difference between the two, but one of them's in the team that's sitting top of the table after how many clean sheets in a row, how many wins in a row, and sitting pretty realistically, whereas the other one is still so damn good, and I'd never coat off Salah, but I just don't see this as the game for him. So just looking at the data comparing it, Salah 3.44 XGI over the last 6, and Sterling actually has a higher XGI with 3.70. Sterling with 3 goals, Salah with just 2. And they're about neck and neck for shots inside the box. Salah with 14, Sterling with 13. It's just, for me, that one is going down to the form of the team. So it's a really legitimate one. And I do think that Sterling might be that player that gets that 1 or 2 goals in that all-important fixture. So that would be my discussion point there. Now, in terms of Lingard, I think I watched the game and I thought, God, he's really wanting to impress or kind of show that he's still got those abilities. He was taking maybe 1 or 2 pop shots that probably weren't the right thing to do in the situation, but he was keen and he worked hard and he did do a good job there. But the other point which I think makes him a hugely appealing asset is the fact that he's playing just behind Antonio. He's going to be feeding one of the best strikers in form at the moment. So it's not a bad shout at all. Just a question to you, Ben, is do you think that he'll start again so closely after being not played for a long old while, and then he's kind of shoved into 2 games on the bounce? Is that a realistic kind of game management Moyes would do?
It is a gamble. It is a risk. For me, like I say, I think it would never be admitted, but the conversations behind the scenes, exactly what would have happened with Dean Smith and Ross Barkley. I'm coming here to play. I need minutes. If I want to put myself in the shop window, if I want to prove to Gareth Southgate that I've got something to offer and bring to that England squad, I need to be on the pitch. Now, for me, I think there's almost that unwritten, guarantee, that little secret handshake that says Lingard start. I mean, Moyes even said, look, this guy he doesn't carry any weight. He's as fit as a fiddle. He's lean. He has been training. It's not like he's been injured. It's just that little bit of match fitness. We've discussed it before. There's no replacing playing in the Premier League at the highest level, the cut and thrust. But if we were maybe talking 3, 4, 5 games down the line, and these games were coming thick and fast every 2, 3, 4 days, I might have a concern. But his second game, after being out for so long and scoring 2 goals in a great win, when all of a sudden he's went almost from zero to hero, to players talking about him and going, Jesus Christ, what a player he is. He's shown what he's been. He will be itching to get back on that pitch. And he will be buzzing around those training pitches. And I tell you what, it would be a brave manager to turn around and say to Jess Lingard, the weekend, sorry, I'm going to take you out that start. I know you are good, but I'll bring you on the last 10 minutes. For me, does not happen. Jess Lingard goes out there, and you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't get at least another goal.
Yeah, it's a great shout, and maybe more so than Callum Hudson-Odoi as well, because Chelsea's underlying data isn't as good as West Ham's, and Moyes is kind of secure there. They've got a better in-form striker at the moment. I'm not going to say that Antonio is better than Werner or Tammy Abraham. I don't think that's even a fair debate, because they're all different types of strikers and players. So that's kind of the midfield sorted. So let's move it up to my front 3. First of all, Antonio. I think we've kind of waxed lyrical enough about West Ham and Antonio. He's just so good. And I think as well he's playing Fulham. Now, a few weeks ago, Fulham seemed to have turned the corner with their defensive abilities, but it's not been turned enough. They haven't gone like all the way so that you wouldn't back Antonio in this game. And I suppose an interesting conundrum for me is who I will captain in this group. I think Fernandes is probably the safe bet, but I do like the man up next, Anthony Martial. 2 goals in this drubbing of Southampton, the 9-0 again. For some reason, Hassan Hutel. I mean, name me a more iconic duo than Hassan Hutel and a 9-0 loss. It's crazy. But Martial came on. I was really peeved. I was thinking, oh God, he's been rested. Oh God, he's come on and Wan-Bissaka's scored and now I'm not going to get any points. And then, fair enough to him, he did me proud. I stuck with him for a long time in FPL. But in terms of fan team, this could be a great one for him. Everton, he's rested. He's taken lots of shots in the box, more so than Rashford, more so than any other Man United player. And his XG and XGI are sky high as well. So I think the numbers are there for Martial. And when he is playing, when he is on the pitch, he does look bright. He does look like he's going to get a chance or two. So I think that actually owning Martial is a good shout for this game against Everton. He's the other Man United asset that I like most. But in terms of Man United assets, I do have to throw this one to you. I think you're prepared now. You're sitting comfortably, Ben. I don't want to shock you too much, right? Luke Shaw. I think... I'm sorry. I feel like you're almost a father, and oh no, you're like a father that I've let down. You know, just coming in and saying, Dad, I know you're a big Arsenal fan, but for some reason I've converted to be a Tottenham fan. This is one of those moments. I mentioned Luke Shaw, and also Bamford's in my team. Maybe I'm alien Jason, I don't know, come from another planet. But we do have to talk about Luke Shaw because over the last 6 game weeks, huge amount of chances created. He's done a lot of good creative work. His XGI is sky high. XA is really good. He's looking great. Obviously, in terms of FPL, we've kind of discussed this, but for this game against Everton, there's a high chance of a clean sheet. I don't think Everton have turned the corner there either in terms of their attacking data, but that's the bread and butter. There's that element that Luke Shaw might get involved with an assist or something like that. He's playing further up the pitch. He's playing far more aggressively. And this was a comment that actually people criticised Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for earlier in the season, that Man United's fullbacks weren't attacking enough. Maybe he was resting them a little bit because of COVID, not wanting to overstretch them. I'd argue that Wan-Bissaka has always been that more defensive kind of fullback, whereas Luke Shaw is more of the attacking one. So this might be his kind of time to shine, his ability to get forward. But have I left you reeling too much here, Ben? Are you just too shocked that I'd even say his name and the sanctity of the podcast? Have I almost desecrated it?
Look, we know that fan team is unique in its platform, and effectively it's almost a free chip that you get to use every single week. And the stats don't lie. And maybe I need my eyes opened to Luke Shaw. But I see Luke Shaw and Wan-Bissaka as the Cancelo Diaz, the City and United combination. And for me, there's 2 ways you can go here. The Cancelo and the Shaw are the dynamic, the maverick pick, the ones that give you, yes, you have the defensive potential, but as an attacking force, they bring a lot more to the party. There's a chance that you're not just going to get a little bit of outside top, but you might even get past first base, and then who knows. However, with that, there comes a risk, and the risk is, well, one, you could be rotated. Alex Telles, is there, and like we see in midweek, half time, Ollie, he done during that opening 45 minutes, bombing up and down to a soft tissue injury. Therefore, we took him off. So for me, I like what the potential Luke Shaw brings, but maybe I'd like to always play a little bit more conservative, as I have done with City, and go with Diaz, because I know he's nailed. I know he's getting 90 minutes. And Wan-Bissaka is almost the same on the opposite flank. There's nobody who can really come into that United side, not unless Ollie wants to change things up completely and maybe he's go with a 3 there. And so more often than not, I would find myself, and yes, we have got that safety net. If Shaw say doesn't start, you get to tell us, but and then it comes to a word, I'd rather have Wan-Bissaka or Tellez. Again, it's a tough one, but I think it would be Wan-Bissaka. But I certainly couldn't talk anybody out of Luke Shaw purely from a statistical standpoint.
Have I disappointed you, though, in mentioning Luke Shaw's name in the sanctity of our podcast?
You know what? I'm not even sure. You think you know somebody, and then they do something like this, and you realise you never really knew them at all. And you can say Luke Shaw once, and I can forgive you. But when you go out and you bring a Patrick Bamford into it, it's your words mean nothing to me anymore. Your actions speak far louder. And the fact that you're discussing those two players almost in moments of each other, after everything we've been through, all of the tears that we've shed, all of those nights alone together, there's some things that are just, I'm lost. I'm crying on the inside.
Oh no, that's really cut me deep here. I feel like I should, I don't know, get a handkerchief, give it to you through Zoom or something like that. This turned really deep and emotional. I mean, would you say that I'm like an alien or something? Alien Jason, or
we will see how things progress during the course of the coming weeks.
Okay.
And if you sort of revert to type, then I can maybe dismiss this as a minor blip, as a mistake, as a drunken bit of tomfoolery. Who knows? We'll write it off and we'll forget about it and we will move on.
I thought you'd be proud in many aspects that it was, instead of differential Dinnery, it was differential Jason for once. Like, I was almost following in your footsteps. I thought I'd make you proud, but unfortunately not. And unfortunately, we do have to move on to Patrick Bamford. I don't know if his words, the name of his name, actually is worse for you. But in terms of it, the reason why I brought Patrick Bamford in is we know how good Leeds are going forward, really good attacking kind of data over the course of the season. There's been a little bit of a slow up recently, but all of a sudden Bamford seems to have found his shooting boots once again. Leeds are kind of moving forward up the pitch nicely. But the big thing for me is Crystal Palace have a fair few problems in terms of injury records, and no more so than the loss of Wilfried Zaha. I think that obviously he's not a defensive player. He's not going to be there sweeping up at the back. But his loss to CPFC, to the Eagles, is invaluable. And there'll be a psychological blow. He's a leader on the pitch. He might not wear the captain's armband, but he certainly leads by example. He drives that team on. When they're 1-0 down, he'll be kind of leading the attacks, creating the chances. And so this leaves Crystal Palace really exposed, I think. And this could be a game where we see a fair few goals, and we know how much Leeds like scoring. So Bamford will be involved with that, and I really like it. But I don't know if I'm missing maybe the memo here, Ben. I don't know, maybe if I'm putting too much faith in Patrick Bamford. But I just love the numbers, because I think with Leeds, if there was a different striker than Bamford, you'd have their striker in no matter what. They'd be set and forget. If they had somebody the likes of Aubameyang, he'd probably be on 30, 40 goals already. The quality, as well as the number of chances they create, is ridiculous. But Bamford's doing his bits. He's doing as well as he can. And fair dues to Bielsa for still believing in him. And I like this game against Palace. The other thing that I like about this is I think he might be more differential than people might think with this game week. People will look at this and they'll go, oh, it's Crystal Palace against Leeds. Crystal Palace are a good defence, but they're not that good. They've only kept, I think, 3 clean sheets all season. They don't tend to not at least let in a goal each game. They don't score a lot of goals either. So they're working fine margins, and this is the kind of game which I think Leeds would capitalise upon. So there is that aspect to it. But I don't know if I'm focused too much on Bamford, if you think there's another Leeds asset, or maybe another striker that maybe I should put in my attention to.
Look, my team selection echoed your thoughts with regards to Leeds United and both Manchester United. However, I went with two slightly different players. In attack, I went on the opposite. I went with Marcus Rashford. He was rested. He came off early, midweek. He has been carrying shoulder, knee problems. He was benched recently by Ollie. It looked as if, I think it was the FA Cup as well. He's starting to look as if he's enjoying his football again. Looks that little bit of sharper, just getting that little bit of fitness, getting rid of those niggles. So he edges it over Martial for me. And yes, look, everything you said about Leeds, but of course I can never go down the Bamford route. So the only other obvious Leeds pick would be in Rafinha. The two players complement them. Each other so very well. If one scores, the other tends to be assisting, and vice versa. He would drop into midfield, so that would be a slight change in your formation with maybe a 5-3-2, but you save, I think it's around about maybe 0.5, 0.6 million on that. But I want to throw a third striker in there. And look, I like Antonio, but there might be people who want to maybe double up on the defence and maybe go for, say, the Lingard in midfield or the Souček this weekend, as there was a possibility, and maybe throw in one from my hometown club, hopefully not being too biased, with Callum Wilson. Oof. I mean, he's a guy who has been living off scraps. It's almost akin to the impact that Jamie Vardy has at Leicester, except Newcastle aren't anywhere as near as good as them, and we don't have. I'm not going to say we don't maybe have the creative players to be able to or that attacking venture. We've just struggled with how those players are being deployed and set up. But in recent games, we have seen an apparent shift in philosophy from Steve Bruce and his new assistant manager, Graham Jones. And I think Callum Wilson, I was on the first podcast today, I was all over Newcastle, like a tramp on chips. I was all absolutely loving it. However, we've had a Ralph Hasenhüttl press conference since, and the treatment room, problems are beginning to ease. We've had the red card rescinded from Bednarek, first and foremost. Yannick Vestergaard is back on the training pitches. Ariel Romeu is back on the training pitches. And also, Kyle Walker-Peters could also feature as well. I mean, 4 big players to potentially come into that same team, which will make them look a lot more solid and a lot more robust, because confidence will be fragile. I still think an early goal on Tyneside, those heads could drop and we could do quite well. But, with Almiron, San Maxim if he starts, and Ryan Fraser, all in behind Callum Wilson, with maybe John Joe Shelby pulling the strings, there's potential for us to go and attack teams on the front foot, and that's where our strength lies. And I think it's a good opportunity for Newcastle to go out there and, given what we've had so far from Callum Wilson, if we do that, then, there's potential there to hit 20 plus goals this season.
The thing is, Callum Wilson was on my shortlist as well. And again, this is the funny thing that we don't talk about these things. I think this is the fun element, is we kind of go in, we discuss and we throw back and forth. But yeah, I mean, looking at it, I think that the funny thing for me was when kind of Steve Bruce came out with this mad interview and he's like, we're coming out here and we're going to play our football, my football, the football that I want to play. And I mean, it's, how do you rate my Geordie accent by that? Oh, no. I
mean, look, I mean, from a purely comedy standpoint, it's good. I like it. It made us chuckle. I'm seeing 8.5 to 9. How it reflects a true Geordie accent. You sound more like a Mackem, if the truth be known. Okay. Somewhere between a Mackem and like a smoggy.
Oh
I'm
no.
not getting the real Geordie twang there, but look, I liked it, and I'm picking up little tones of Steve Bruce in that. I just need to ask how the bacon butties are, and then you'll be absolutely nailed.
Well, I usually jump in with like cheesy chips, or I'm going down the lower to get a doner kebab and cheesy chips. Oh, I love it. But I don't know if that's good enough. Maybe in another podcast we need to kind of almost have accent lessons, just so that you can teach me so that I don't offend you. I mean, obviously that was very assumptive of me to kind of copy your native tongue there without some sort of permission, and I can only apologise if it was highly offensive. But no, in all seriousness, Steve Bruce made that really perplexing interview that I don't even know where it came from. Like, if you've been in charge for 18 months, what have you been doing then? If it's not been your style for 18 months, what the hell's been happening behind the doors? So, but since then, since he's made that crazy kind of interview, Wilson has had the most shots in the box over the last 2 game weeks. Newcastle, arguably the second best attack over the last 2 game weeks. And as you said there, Southampton psychologically not in a good position, another 9-0 loss. They won't have their best 11 out there. They won't have their best team. Obviously, Bednarak's red card has been rescinded, but they still won't have their best 11. And I think that was part of the problem with the Man United game. Going out there, they were already a bit low. They were already not playing well. They've already had a few losses and been struggling recently. Let's not beat around the bush with them. We were waxing lyrical about them at the start of the season, and unfortunately, I don't know what's caught up with them, whether it's injuries, whether they burnt out because of COVID, but the team kind of went from maybe pushing a European spot to now defensive data very poor, attacking data very poor. So this is the sort of game that maybe, like Bruce said, they can play on the front foot, actually go in, because they don't need to worry too much about being attacked against. And actually, yeah, they could get a fair few goals. Maybe I should treble up on Newcastle, or at least double up, because I think defensively, that is a mind-blown moment. But defensively, I don't think Southampton will offer too much worry. So maybe one of their defensive assets, not bad. I like Almiron, I like Sam Maxim, and I'm not sure about Fraser, but then maybe if he can strike up that Wilson-Fraser relationship that they had at Bournemouth, that would be good as well. But he's just not looked himself for, before he even joined Newcastle for a long while. So if I was going to get one of those midfielders, it'd probably be Almiron or Sam Maxim. But Wilson's the headliner there. I do have to ask though, why is Geordie Joe not enough thinking? I mean, Joe Linton, he's Geordie through and through, or is that, too obvious to bring him in?
I mean, the short answer is he just isn't very good. First and foremost. Yeah, look, whether it's the weight of expectation arriving on Tyneside with a huge price tag, he just hasn't really been able to deliver. And look, I've got absolutely nothing against Joe Linton. It's not his fault he's crap, but you are. It's not his fault that Newcastle paid 40 million for you and we expected a half-decent footballer. He goes out, he tries, he just lacks that little bit of quality. And I think, when you're looking at those players in that attacking third, the 4 obvious ones you outlined, and if you could keep him fit, and I really like us, and he brings something different. I think it's a possibility in a 4-4-2. You've got your maybe your Fraser and your Sam Maxim Wade. You play with Callum Wilson and Andy Carroll. Andy Carroll's your target man. Wilson in and around him, playing off as almost your Peter Crouch and your Michael Owen. I think that's a great combination. Andy Carroll's still got the hunger. He's still got the quality, but maybe his body just can't handle and tolerate the demands of playing, 90 minutes of Premier League football week in and week out anymore.
I mean, that breaks my heart about Geordie Joe. Does he get the certification from Ben Dinnery of dog shit? Is that the dog shit certification there?
You know what? It's difficult because he goes out and any player that goes out and gives 100% and tries their best for the team, I can't be too hard on them. You know, you just have to hold your hands up and say, look, you're crap. But you know, it's not the full cow pat. No, it's not the full cow pat salute with him. It's, you know what, it's just one of those things, and his time will come. And if we can find an opportunity to offload him at some point, then you know we will. But I think he's way down the pecking order. Bruce even likes, you know, you've got Dwight Gale in there as well, who can come in, and Steve Bruce is a big fan of his. So I think there's 3, possibly 4 players ahead of him now in that starting 11.
God bless Geordie Joe. But God bless everybody tuning in tonight, because we have had fun. We've had fun discussing this fan team, and I think this is why I'm really enjoying it, because it's something new, something different, and really just a brilliant piece of new fantasy football to join in with. As stated many times here, what I love most is the fact that it's different each week. You can really kind of go out there, differential Mavericks, and you're not really punished for it. You put in a little bit of money, doesn't cost too much, and you've had fun. And then also, if you do well, you've got the bragging rights over your friends. If you don't do well, doesn't matter, because you've got next week on the horizon. And we will be back next week, so make sure to stay subscribed, because we've got lots of good content. We've got Dr. Raj, who comes in and talks about the fantasy elements of injuries, why maybe players shouldn't be back soon or could be on the horizon, why things happen. We do have, as I said there, Tactic Thursdays, a little sneak tease there for you, something coming on the horizon. We do have LT in as well. Really fun discussions there, some controversial comments and lots of laughs. And then, of course, we have our normal Fantasy Premier League discussion, so stay tuned with all of that. But for now, just have to say I wish you all the best of luck as always, and see you next week. But for now, goodbye.
And thanks, Jason. Great to discuss your team. Good luck with that. Hot off the press, we've just had the Chelsea-Tottenham game finish. I have ended up in 290th. So there's a slight drop in my returns, but I have doubled my money. So even coming down, you know, just in the top 300, I've managed to double my money. So I will take that. So it's been a great week for me. Looking to reinvest. Again, you know, I'll take on board some of the points that you made there, because that certainly shines a different light on the thought process. And there may be a couple of teams coming in from my point of view, maybe looking at maybe one focusing maybe on Liverpool, maybe some on City, but looking at maybe involving some of those West Ham players as well. So yeah, it's a good night from the Premier Pundits. It's been great, and good luck to everybody, and win some money. And ciao for now.
You got to do the gun fingers as well, Ben. There you go. It wouldn't be a podcast without that.